Hi, everybody. My name is Vala Shahabi, founder of 52 Properties, and welcome to our webinar today. This is part one of a five-series webinar geared towards the buy and hold investor. This is tools to analyze any buy and hold deal. I started 52 Properties to provide people education, opportunity, and the resources so you can be successful in real estate and have an abundant life. 52 Properties, our motto is one off-market deal each week. So as you sign up for our deal list, you'll receive you'll receive a deal every week in your inbox. And if you don't like the deals we're sending, feel free to always email me or email us at info@52properties. Let us know what you're looking for, and we'll find you the perfect deal. If you do have questions, please go ahead and enter them in the question box in the webinar software. And we'll take all the questions at the end. So as they come to your mind, go ahead and just enter it in there so that way you don't forget what you're going to ask. Because we're just going to go through the content here and then we'll make it interactive at the end. So today's guest speaker is Ali. Ali has over 10 years of real estate experience from both the owning side and also the investing side of the house. And from the investing side, he's done the full gambit of investing between buy and holds, flips, wholesaling, commercial, and he's done this all over the country. Ali also travels around the country teaching real estate classes to folks. So I'm very happy to have him here presenting today. So without further ado, I'd like to jump into it. Thank you guys for joining again, and hopefully you'll like the content. Ali, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Vala. Hey, guys. Thanks so much for having me on today's call. The title of this call is all about tools to analyze any buy and hold deal, but it's more than that. And it's about how do you really optimize your investment decision. Investment decision here being, of course, the buy and hold. So let's jump right into it, and let's go to slide 2. The objective here is we're going to show you actual tools that you can use to just really quickly scan through and vet any deal that comes across your desk. And again, the goal is we want to help optimize your investment decision. And it's really not about, Vala's company here, 52 Properties, but it's more about your investment decision and how you actually make the right decision for you with respect to real estate investing. So really, this is sort of a best practice, and I just want to stop right here and kind of give you guys the heads up that there's going to be portions of this discussion that are going to be kind of ho-hum to you, and sort of that it's like, wow, thanks for coming in today, Ali. I've already seen that, or I've already done that, but I think there's important concepts to reinforce here, and so I just want to put that out there. And certainly for the newbie or the real estate investor who's just getting started, I think this is going to be really relevant. So again, this is going to help you in an analytical way, kind of help you analyze the investment decision, and then quickly just vet every single decision so you can come right to a no-go, red light, or green light decision. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly, bring together resources to help, again, maximize your profitability. So again, let's just talk about, how did we get here, right? So the background is in my career spanning over a decade and doing tons and tons of deals, both commercial and residential, and it's amazing, I still get it today, is that you get so many realtors and wholesalers who won't give you the full picture. They literally will omit a critical data point, and you'll think to yourself, well, gosh, it would have been great after the fact to have known that, because I may have not pulled the trigger on that, right? And so I have a law background, and in the law, lots of experts will say, well, an omission of fact is the same thing of a fact, right? So basically, if you omit a fact, it rises to the same level of providing a fact. And here, it's a great segue into the first point, which is the whole distinguishing difference between what a pro forma is and an actual. And so for those of you who don't know what a pro forma, it's basically if the stars and moon were aligned and if we lived in a perfect world, and we all know we don't live in a perfect world, that's what a pro forma would be. It's purely upon projection. And I got to tell you, out of the 500 plus deals I've done, never has the actual mirrored the pro forma. It's amazing. So, in my mind, after doing this 500 plus times, I'm going to tell you right now, pro formas are completely meaningless. Completely. You want actual. And what I mean by actual is you want the actual P&L delivered to you, and with the top line, and we'll get into it a little bit later in the deck, but and the top line will be the gross income number, right? And that comes from rents. Well, where do rents come from? They obviously come from renters, but the renters are providing rental deposit slips, and they're giving you a track record of exactly what they've deposited to the landlord's account. And that's what I mean by getting actual numbers, not stated numbers, actual numbers. Really, really critical point. Can't overstate that enough. The second piece here is we're going to encourage you to collaborate with multiple members across your team. And here we're talking about property management, we're talking about insurance agents, title companies, realtors, the whole gamut. And the reason is because not only can they provide kind of a critical view on the investment decision, but inorganically, or I should say rather organically, they come into the equation and they feel vested as part of the investment decision. A quick anecdote for you, and not to get off topic, but the master of this point, I got to tell you, is my own father. He's so good at roping people in to different projects. And at the end of the day, you think like, wow, you own that project. But in fact, you don't. You're at best a vendor. And I kind of learned this at an early age. So to the extent that you can collaborate with other stakeholders, and again, you don't want to do this in a cheesy or contrived way, but what you want to do is collaborate with them because they're going to help you, again, vet an important investment decision, and they're going to feel like, you know, they had an important role in the process. And then finally, you're going to want to sense check this with 3 objective realtors. What I mean by objective is a realtor who is not a part of that transaction, who's completely independent and distinct from that transaction. You're going to want to sense check that with them, along with 3 other independent real estate investors, because again, they're going to help you determine sort of the validity and scope of that deal and of the numbers, because they're going to be on the ground. They do deals week to week. They see deals come across your desk all the time, and they can give you what we call the really reallys. Okay, so this is the whole background challenges. I spent a lot of time on this by design because I want you to know, how did we even come up to this, of, you know, why are we even talking to you about this? So the solution that we have there's 3 key ways to analyze a property. Now you may say, but Ali, I know there's many, many more. True, there are. But if I had to sort of bucketize these 3 and put them in distinct swim lanes, this is what I would do. So the purpose of this is we don't want you to do analysis paralysis. We want you to do what's called sort of the 80 for 20, which is if you have 80% of the information on a topic, guess what? You have close to 100%. It's the 80 for 20. And here, first, we'll have you look at online sites, and I'm just throwing one out there, totalviewrealestate.com. I use it myself. It can help you quickly run numbers and a value of a property. So you punch in a value, and it'll tell you a high, medium, and low value. And then what you can say is, wow. In some cases, if the data is up to date, it'll also tell you what the previous purchase price was. So you can get a sort of a back of the napkin number on, wow, how much spread or how much profit is the seller selling it to me, excluding rehab. But that's just kind of an aside. The other site that I like is rentometer.com. That's a good one because, look, the reality is most of you will buy real estate outside of your home city. Now you may say, well, no, I want to be able to touch and feel my rental property, and that's great. But there's a vast majority of you that are going to say, I want to buy 4 or 5 states over, and I need a sort of a independent way to vet some of these numbers. Rentometer is another good one to determine the rental rates, which is the top line of your P&L. The second swim lane are investor-friendly realtors. And I got to tell you, there's only 2 kinds of realtors on earth. There's investor-friendly ones and everybody else. And, in the first 90 seconds in any conversation, I can tell which category they fall in. I'll tell you, there's 3 ways to know whether your agent is investor friendly. Number 1, if they're an investor themselves. Number 2, if the vast majority of their clients are investors. And number 3, look, is it easy to speak to them? Do they get what you're trying to say? Because if it's not, then if it feels like pulling teeth, it's not going to work, and they're not going to be an investor friendly agent. Very quick anecdote I want to tell you. Just a few days ago, I got in my car. I live in LA, and I went to 15 different real estate offices here in town. Believe it or not, I spent one full day dressed in whiz bang attire, whatever, and just went out and met with a bunch of realtors. And I got to tell you, the vast majority of them were not investor friendly, but the 4 or 5 of them were, and it was a world of difference. That same day, they sent me deals that were off market, okay, that were had enough profit in them that I could either do a dry double close, a wet double close, or an assignment of contract to make money. Now you may say, well, that's not part of this deck, but my point is that you can, once you meet an investor friendly agent, they're worth their weight in gold 10 times over, because they're going to more than pay out the investment that they're going to bring to you. They also have, of course, the inside scoop on the value of your deal. They sit right next to the seller's agent, or the seller in some cases, if they're representing both the seller and the buyer, and they'll be able to tell you, look, here's what the real value is. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, if that deal doesn't go through, if you kill it for whatever reason, which is not the end of the world, in fact, that's a positive thing in some cases, they can provide other deals for you, right? So they can say, hey, you know what, this didn't work, but I got to tell you, I've had this pocket listing in my hip pocket that is perfect for you. And to the extent that you can get that as well, I think that's a huge value add. And finally, and this may seem counterintuitive, but there's other real estate investors who come to the table who will gladly analyze your investment decision. And these guys, I got to tell you, they will put the investment decision through the ringer. And why will they do that? Because they're going to want to say, you know what, that's not the deal you should go with. You should go with my deal, right? And I got to tell you, if they tell you that's a good deal, 9 out of 10 times, it's a great deal. Because they already have what I call the torture test, which is, they're gonna torture that deal so much that it's gonna come out, and if it comes out in a positive way, look, it's glowing. So what they do, and I've been on the other side of the fence where other people have come to me and say, hey, Ollie, what do you think about this deal? And what I will do is I will forward it to 4 or 5 of my investor-friendly agents, what we just talked about, and they'll give me a sense check on it, and they'll tell me, again, green light or red light, okay? So, again, they'll provide the reallys, and then you'll send it back to the investor. Look, they live in the area. They're on the ground. They know properties, right? They know it. So, what better resource? And again, finally, if that deal doesn't work, and you may say, you know what, I'm not going to buy and hold it, but I'm going to help wholesale it or do an assignment of contract or move it some other way, they can help you do that for a cut. Okay? So these are 3 key ways to analyze a property: online sites, investor-friendly realtors, and real estate investors. So I want to take you through a property that 52 is talking about with you guys this week, and just let's analyze it in all these different tools that we've just seen. So this is what Vala is touting as the deal of the week. It's a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, which, by the way, I'm going to stop right there. I think 3 and 1.5 is the sweet spot for a family, and also for maybe some graduate students in college, or a bachelor who's going to, have some roommates. It's just a good configuration right off the bat. Okay. I see a lot of 2-1s, and that doesn't really fit the bill. So 3, 1.5 bath is probably the sweet spot number. 1,500 square feet. It's yielding an 8% net ROI. Right off the bat, when I look at this and I look at language, I already like it. Why? because I'm looking at the word net. See, he's not telling you this is a gross ROI. What he's already telling you is this is not even a pro forma. These are actual numbers, which again is going to tell you a much more vivid story and the real picture than anything else. So scrolling down, you'll see, these are the pictures, and these are good. I like the gamut of the pictures, again, because it's going to show you what does this house really look like. I mean, you can just kind of scroll through it. Obviously an updated kitchen, nice hardwood floors, a lot of charm, character. You can see a lot of updating, and I can already tell from just like the lighting alone, there's a lot of updates. You can see it in the bathroom, etc., and so forth. So we already know the house has good bones. It looks really nice, updated. And you can see in the language here, new electrical, new plumbing, mechanicals, HVAC, the flooring, the kitchen's been updated. The tenant has moved in with a year lease. Huge, because already you have a lease in place. It's in Indianapolis, which we all know is a really good up-and-coming area. In fact, in the last 4 or 5 years, I would say it's probably one of the most popular in the Midwest. It's going for $70,000. So now let's look at the numbers here. Okay, so $850 rental income. I look at the number and I say, is that realistic? What would I do with that? How do I know that that's real? What I would do is go to Rent-A-Meter, and let's go plug that into Rent-A-Meter right now. So if you guys can all see this website, I'm going to go to Rent-A-Meter, and I'm going to plug in the address that I see, and I apologize for the lag time here if there's any. So what we're going to do is we're going to go Rent-A-Meter, but we're also going to go to Total View Real Estate. And nice thing about that is it's a very user-friendly website where it's basically you're just putting in the address, the city, and the zip, and then you hit get information. So while that's churning right now, we're going to go back to Rent-A-Meter, do the same thing, and we're going to get a read on what the average rents are. And again, why am I starting with this? Because I want to know what the value is, and I also want to know what is my rental going to be. Okay, so rent right now, it's saying it's about $710. Median rent's about $700, so we're about in the $700 range. Now you may say, well, wow, that Vala guy who set up this whole 52 has been lying to us. Well, let's look at the data first. 60% fall within 608 to 808, and 80% up to $861, right? So already I know that that number is a realistic number, and it falls within the realistic range that Rent-A-Meter says. I also want to tell you that Rent-A-Meter is a stated website, which basically means that the information is stated to them, and they have no way of pulling leases for all these different zip codes and houses all over the country. How would they, right? It's almost logistically impossible. But you can tell that this is, again, 80% of your way there. And I'm going to say that's good enough for me. So I already know that the rent checks out. So I'm going to go back to Total View and look at the number. Now, the estimate, now let me tell you here. They have estimates for 109,000 is the low estimate from Zillow that they provide. And the Total View is an aggregator, right? So what they do is they pull all kinds of data from multiple sources, and the low estimate is 110,000. The mid estimate is about 135. They put it at about 116,000, right? So right off the bat, you can say, well, wow, they're selling it for 70. There's already some built-in equity in there. And what I do with Total View is I take the number, whatever number they give me, and I discount it by 10%. You may say, well, where do you come up with the 10%? I just made it up. Why? Because what I'm doing is I want to understate my number so I'm not exposed in terms of what my expectations going in. Now, there's a very curious number here, which is what it was sold for. So the county has it sold for $27,000 about a couple of months ago. You may say, wow, these guys are making tons of money off of me. They're making like $30-something thousand off of me. Hold on, let's analyze this. Now, when you see numbers that are drastically that low, there's a few things going on. Number one, and I'm not saying this is the case here, but I'm just giving you some potential reasons why this is so low. So number one is with the attorney or the title company that files that deed, the seller is going to want to ping it at the very lowest acceptable amount for the county to record. Why? Because he wants to minimize his transfer taxes, and he wants to minimize all kinds of expenses associated with that deed transfer. So the price may have been way more than that, but according to the county, he's just minimizing his transfer taxes, and that's why he's pegging it at $27,000. The second and equally likely possibility is that, yeah, they might have bought it for $30, but they put 20 something thousand dollars in rehab to get it to where it is. So they're into the deal at $50,000 and they're selling it for $60,000. Not uncommon. They win. The seller got out of the deal. You get a great deal because look, hey, there's 40 something thousand dollars in equity there. So again, I just think this is a very good website. It gives you all the comps here below. You can also see what the lot size is, 3,000 square foot lot, 1,500, single family home. The tax assessment is 96,500. What I also like about the tax assessment number is that it closely mirrors what the estimated value is, right? So it's about close to 100,000. This is saying it's about 115,000. Again, that 10-15% delta or difference, they're very close, which basically means that the value is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of north of $100,000. So this to me is a very strong green light decision, both on the buy and hold side and also due to the equity. Okay, so if I go back to the deck here. So now that we've seen the three ways to analyze a property, what I'm basically going to do is take you to, let's drill down a little bit deeper and let's look at this pro forma and what to look for. Now you may say, Ali, you just told us pro forma is meaningless. Why are you wasting our time? I just maybe this is overkill, but I want to show you what we look for or what I look for in a pro forma. So here's an example of a pro forma, right? Property price just shy of $60,000. Rental income is $850. I multiply that by 12. I multiply all these by 12 to get a yearly number. I got my taxes, utility, insurance, management fees, total expenses. Great. My net return is 15%. That's awesome. Slam dunk. High five moment, right? No, because what I really want to look for is the actual P&L. Remember, I'm all about actual. I'm all about reality. So in reality, I got management fees are there. It's zero. You may say, well, why do I have zero there? Well, I guess the guys from 52 over there are being kind enough and waiving your management fee for the first year, right? But what else have they done? They've shown you a maintenance reserve and a vacancy reserve. Maintenance reserve basically means, look, you need to carve away, you need to store some money away for a rainy day, right? There's going to be a plumbing issue. There's going to be the garbage disposal is going to be backing up. Something is going to happen where you're going to need to pull money from a reserve to pay your handyman to resolve that issue, right? And tenants, of course, we all know, stay in their units 12 months out of the year and pay on time every single month, right? Of course. No, they don't do that, right? So we know that we have to have some kind of reserve to account for the months where there is a vacancy, tenants move in and out. And I got to tell you, in C and D areas or lower income areas, that vacancy reserve is going to be much, much higher. Okay, in my estimation, in those kinds of areas, your vacancy reserve, you can have basically 6 months vacant or 6 months of a tenant not paying rent. That is not uncommon, okay? So just keep an eye on vacancy reserve and maintenance reserve, and that's what I mean by actual, okay? So, and then the last thing I'll say about vacancy reserve is just make sure it's consistent with the area. Obviously, if you're talking about areas like, I don't know, Beverly Hills, right? High-end area, you're not going to have a ton of vacancies. Everybody wants to live there. tenants are more about their paying their rent and making sure they're studious, et cetera, and so forth. But if you're in a rougher area, the vacancy reserve is going to be higher. So just make sure you sense check it again with the folks that we encourage you to do with the realtors, real estate investors, et cetera. And really critical, be suspect of cap rates over 12. I got to tell you, 4 or 5 years ago, when the market was really down, the economy was down, and you're getting real estate for pennies on the dollar, these cap rates were higher because the purchase prices were much, much lower. But now the purchase prices have gone up. Inventory has dried up in most markets. In fact, probably all markets that I can think of. Your cap rates aren't going to be that high. So if anybody told me a cap rate over 12, I'm initially already going to be suspect of that. And let me give you my last real world tip on that. Whenever somebody gives me a cap rate, I just divide it by 2 in my mind. You're like, well, how did you come up with that? Is it another random number you're coming up with? Kind of, but it turns out to be back of the napkin pretty accurate. Because if I, like looking at this deal, if my net ROI is, call it 11%, then in my net cap rate or my net return on my investment may only be 5 and change. And if I can live with that, if I can sleep at night with that, then this is a go decision for me, guys. And anything north of 5 is going to be gravy, right? I'm going to be ecstatic about that. See, that in and of itself, real estate is such a marathon. Everybody treats it like a sprint, but at the end of the day, it totally is a marathon. That is going to help you weather the storm and weather your fails to fails. Like, there's a saying that I always am fond of. It's, fail, you can fail, that's great, but just fail to succeed. And you just keep failing and failing and failing and failing to finally succeed. And, it's no different with these numbers. If you set yourself up in the right way, you're not going to be exposed. Okay? So, your team. What's the team all about? Well, first of all, I always chuckle when I hear people say, well, I got a team in New York. Really? Where in New York? New York's a country. Ithaca? New York City? Syracuse? Where? Or they say, oh, no, I got a team in Southern California. Southern California in and of itself is a continent. What are you talking about? LA has 18 million people in it. So, even if you told me I got a team in LA, you may have to tell me, is it West LA? Is it Westwood? Is it what part of town is it? I mean, there's such a huge, huge city. So first of all, we got to just shift our mindset to say that the team has to be per city. It's not per state. Anybody who tells you, I got a team in Illinois, they're blowing smoke your way. Where in Illinois? What zip code, right? So right off the bat, you need 3 property managers on your team. Okay, so basically what you want is 3 people who, one is taking care of your property in day out, but you have 2, to use a sports analogy, that are coming off the bench, right, who are ready to go to help you out. Why? Because property management are notoriously the least proactive and most laziest on your team. Think about what they do all day long, right? They deal with tenant problems. They deal with city issues. Who's the last person they want to speak to? You. And what if you're on the West Coast and you're calling the East Coast? You get off work 5, 6 o'clock and you call your property manager at 9 o'clock his time. You think he wants to pick up the phone and answer? No. Why? Because you're only calling him for problems. You're not calling him and say, hey, Tom, I got to tell you, you're doing such a slam dunk job. You are freaking awesome. No. You're calling him for problems. And that's the last person he wants to speak to is you. And guess what's going to happen? After a year and a half, this is going to wear on you. Trust me, I've been there. I've been down this road before. A year and a half, you're going to say, oh my goodness, my property management team is terrible. I need someone else. And then you're going to be scrambling. You're going to be freaking out. Your property is not going to be well managed. It's going to get broken into or worse. And you don't have that team in place. You don't have the bench strength. You need 3 property managers that come to the table who can deliver for you at any given moment. And guess what? Every 18 months, my estimation is you're going to be doing this. This is part of the dynamic, fluid process of your team. Insurance brokers, you're going to need 3 of them. Why? They're going to farm out the best insurance for you. And I got to tell you, there are insurance companies. I had to go through, gosh, I think it was 4 or 5 different insurance brokers to finally get the insurance company that is so real estate investor friendly that they won't randomly just go to your house, send an auditor out there and let you know that a tree branch is within 6 feet of your siding in your house, and therefore automatically your policy is canceled. Sound familiar? It happened to me. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. So after lots of research and trial and error, et cetera, and so forth, what I did is I found another insurance company that they're owned and run by real estate investors. So they get the game, right? Your siding is off a little bit. The tree is too close to your house. Okay, go trim the shrubs or whatever, right? It's like an hour or 2 fix. You don't have to cancel the policy. It's things like that I mean. General contractors, you're going to need 3 of them. I am shocked by how much money these guys make. And I bang in my head against the wall and thinking, how do I minimize their cut? And if you guys know, shoot me a note at some point and help educate me, because I don't know. They have a skill set that we don't have. They're licensed, they're bonded, they're insured. They've gone this, through this training, etc. And you're going to need them. Okay, they're going to charge you about 20 to 30% above their cost, and they're going to tell you they're only going to charge you 10%. They're also going to tell you they don't get kickbacks from subs, which is, excuse my language, BS. In fact, I'm looking at my desk right now, and I have all of these bids from a project that I'm doing now from a general contractor. And I got to tell you, he's charging me 20% on the top, and he's already getting kickbacks. He's making a killing, 8 hours a week on the job. Unflippin' believable. Which is a good segue into why you need 3 subcontractors per trade. And when I talk about trade, you're talking about plumbing, electrical, roofing, concrete foundation work, and then I'm going to say all other. And all other would fall under flooring, paint, etc., and so forth. Now, you may say, but we just had 3 contractors, GCs. Why would I need 3 subs? Because what's going to happen, they're going to send you an estimate, a $10,000 plumbing job. You're going to get your plumbing sub to give you an apples-to-apples comparison. You're going to look at it and say, wait a minute, why is the sub charging me 7 and my GC is charging me 10? Because the difference is going in GC's pocket. Hello, right? But you're smart enough to have 3 subcontractors in the wings that will help you get that bid and help you cost optimize that. Title companies, huge, huge. You're going to need 3 on your team. Why? A, they're going to help you not only close the deal, but also if you do any wholesale deals in the market, they may help you do double closes. They may, and I have some title companies bring me deals because I've done so many deals with them. They'll say, hey, Ali, you got to check out this deal. I don't have to take it, but at least they give it to me, right? So that's just another value add. And then finally, and this is what I don't know why I'm so quietly proud of this, but it always brings a smile on my face when I think about this. So if you've ever seen a HUD, it's basically an accounting statement, right? And they'll give you all this information on the HUD of their costs, etc. But if you reduce their costs by 10% per deal over a 52-week period, and you do enough deals, that could be a price of a house from 52 properties. Literally. I mean, it could add up. And the way to position it is you don't say, oh, just give me a 10% off discount. You look at the HUD and you say, hey, can you knock off a few $100s here? I've done great business with you. I'm a continued client, et cetera, and so forth. And it's 1 email. It's 17 seconds. You may get a great discount. It happens to me all the time. Probably so much so now they know they increase it by 10% because they know he's coming for his 10% discount. It's just kind of funny. 3 investor-friendly realtors. I told you this before. There's only 2 kinds of realtors. Remember that, investor-friendly and everyone else. And you're going to need at least 3 on your team. Similarly, 3 real estate investors on your team. 2 CPAs. My CPA tells me a CPA stands for cleaning, pressing, and alterations. Because they will optimize your deductions and your income to get you the best portrait, paint you the best portrait in front of the IRS to get it. Now, keep in mind, my CPA told me that if you overstate your deductions and or understate your income by more than 24%, you can be subject to criminal liability. Okay, so tons of public policy arguments around this, but people fudge on their taxes all the time. But there's a sort of an acceptable threshold that the IRS gives you. Finally, you need 3 real estate lawyers. Having a law background myself, you're not licensed in multiple states. Okay, so you're going to need 3 real estate lawyers that will get your back, and you need 3. You may say, well, I might only use 1. Very, very quick story I'll tell you. My real estate lawyer fired me. This was about 2 years ago. He sent me all these amazing articles on the latest cutting edge things in the law, and then I realized he was charging me for it. And then when I called him out on it, he said, yeah, but I was doing the work. And I said, but I didn't ask for the work. And he said, well, yeah, but I still did it. And just because of that pushback, I guess I offended him. And a few months later, true story, he sent me this very sophisticated, long-winded letter that said, I hereby disclaim you as counsel, and you need to take the following 5 steps to go get alternative counsel and do this with the Secretary of State and so forth. Look, guys, the bottom line is if I didn't have other real estate lawyers coming off the bench, I'd be exposed. Don't be that person. This is your team. It's per city. So just to recap this, and I know we've kind of gone, I think we're still in the time frame here, but there's a lot that we talked about. Look, the idea here is there's lots of challenges, a lot of noise out there, a lot of mystery on how to really analyze these buy and holds. And the key is you're going to have to understand each challenge that's coming your way, but you have to, more than understand it, you have to develop these strategies, which is, this portfolio or a suite of tools that I discussed to help analyze each of these and use both online tools and this power team to help, overcome these challenges. All of this, of course, is leading to metrics that you need that will help you generate that actual P&L, and it will allow you to sense check it with members of your power team to ultimately, of course, develop a stronger ROI. Obviously, all of this is leading to developing win-win real estate solutions to help deliver greater ROI. Listen, I really thank 52 Properties for asking me to be a guest speaker. I just think this is a really cool website and initiative that Vala created, and he reached out to me and asked for me to be a guest speaker on this. I really hope you guys saw some value and some nuggets that you can pull away from this. I'm going to open it up to questions. I know that you guys have been typing in some of your questions, so I'll turn it over to Vala. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Ali, for that wonderful presentation. So, guys, just right before we get into questions, we've set up a poll here, and let me go ahead and activate it and launch it. So basically the poll is, how useful was this webinar, right? So select one of the following for the poll. We'll just give everyone a few seconds to answer that. 5 being the highest, very useful, to all the way down to 1, not useful at all. So we like to gauge this so we can improve on future webinars as well. Now, we will open up in a question in a second. I'd like to also go through, any questions you don't want to ask here, you can always email us at info@52properties, and I can get back to you, or we can get back to you one-on-one. And also want to just kind of talk about the upcoming sessions here. So let's close the poll here so you can see my screen again. And so session 2, which is our next one, is basically how to find a diamond in the rough, how to find a great investment property. We'll show you the tools you need, the methods you can go down that road and find this property. That will be October 14th at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern, followed by session 3, which will be multiple ways to finance an investment property. So obviously, cash is king, but there's many other ways you can get into a property. You don't always have to have any money. Session 4 is building the proper team. So Ali spent quite a good amount of time on this session talking about how important the team is and why you need it, but we're going to get into the details of how to actually build that team from the ground up, and per city, right? And then finally, to wrap up the 5 session series, is after you make the purchase, now what? What's the next step? What to do to leverage that property and so forth. So that said, let's go ahead and open up for questions. I see a few here typed in the box. The first one, it says, can you provide info on the property management company you use in Cleveland, Ohio?
Yeah, I can take that, Vala. I guess let me broaden that question. I know 52 Properties has deals all over the country, including Ohio and Midwest and West Coast and all over the country. So let me just broaden that question. I mean, in so many states in the U.S., property management is a derivative or a part of a brokerage, a real estate brokerage, and the reason for that is because it's in many jurisdictions or in many markets, that's by law. A property manager has to hang his license under a brokerage, but also because I think it's easier for all parties, right? And it makes more sense. The property manager will be managing the property for the client. The client is either happy or not, sort of, not in between. He's either happy or not. If he's happy, guess what the property manager does? He'll say, hey, I'm part of Coldwell Banker or Keller Williams or Remax or etc. The agent in my office will be contacting you for similar deals like this. And by the way, the property manager will get a referral from that broker. So the ones that to use are the ones that are affiliated with these brokerages. They're just more sophisticated. They have they're much more organized, and I think they have the capabilities to do a really good job.
Great, thanks. And the next question is, I had a little trouble with my PC getting on the webinar. Will this session be recorded? The answer is yes. You missed it in the beginning. We announced that before we started recording that this is being recorded, so we'll be having that online fairly soon. And that's it. Some people were helping out with some of the problems with the address. Thank you guys so much. Thank you again, Ali,
for joining us. Thanks for inviting me.
And tune in for the next session. Thank you.